As the youngest of 7 children, I often felt like it was my birthright to complain. And I was on one of my adolescent rants one time, and my mother sat me down at the kitchen table and filled a glass halfway. She came back and set the glass down between us, and she said, "Half full or half empty?" And I got stuck on dumb for a second because, of course, it's a trick question. And my mother proceeded to say that, "Son, how you choose to answer that question is how you will live your life. Because your life will always be both half full and half empty. And if you choose to see your life as half empty, if you choose to see your life for the things that you don't have, then you will never fill your cup. But if you can see your life as half full, if you can recognize the things that you do have in your life, then your cup will fill up and it will overflow, and you can share that with others." This is kind of how I think about Tupac Shakur's poem, where he describes young people growing up in urban poverty as the roses that grow from concrete. And Pac says, when you see a rose growing in the concrete, you don't question its damaged petals. Of course it has damaged petals. It's growing in the concrete. Instead, you celebrate its tenacity and its will to reach the sun. Now, I think Pac is right to acknowledge that the concrete is real and that there are young people attempting to grow in this concrete. And so it's important when we're trying to grow roses in the concrete that we actually understand it better. There's very few things out there that describe the concrete as effectively as this film series, which PBS recently released, called Unnatural Causes. And I think the title's appropriate because the concrete is not natural. The conditions in which urban youth are growing are not natural. They're created, which means that they can be changed. Now, the thing about this concrete is that there's multiple layers to it, and I don't have time to go into all the layers today, so I'm going to focus on one that's particularly profound in the community where I live and teach. I live in a 3400 block of East Oakland, and in 2002, the San Francisco Chronicle became so concerned with the level of homicide in our community, they started mapping it. And so between 2002, they drew out this map. Now, the interesting thing about their word choice is they said that we have the plague. Now, the interesting thing about that word choice is that the plague is the ultimate non-discriminator. It doesn't recognize race. It doesn't recognize class. And it doesn't recognize political boundaries. The red lines there are the city boundaries of Oakland, and you don't have to be a topographical genius to look at this map and see the outlier. Piedmont. Okay? A city inside of our city. Now, what the hell is going on in Piedmont where they can completely opt out of the plague? Okay? And in fact, the plague is quarantined in our community. It's quarantined between the 2 freeways, between the 580 freeway and the 880 freeway, which in our community we call that the flatlands or the lower bottoms. And that's where I live, and that's where I've taught for the last 18 years. Now, over the 5 years that the Chronicle mapped the plague, there were 555